The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Seven minutes past 12, Friday lunchtime, live from Douglas in the Isle of Man, Manx Radio and the Mannin Line. Just a quick reiteration about that social media scam posts which are appearing to show a connection to Manx Radio. They're appearing on Facebook with you being invited to phone an overseas call centre results. Now, I guarantee these posts aren't from Manx Radio. They're scams. They've copied the logo. We've been made aware of one that also features the Chief Minister with an invitation to click on a link and answer some questions. And then at the end of the survey, you call a UK mobile phone number, which will, of course, mean it'll be charged at about £30 a minute. So if you're using the official Manx Radio Facebook page, you're fine. In the meantime, just be careful of unsuspected posts on your timeline claiming to be from Manx Radio, particularly if they ask you to call UK mobile phone numbers. Remember, if you're not sure of the origin of a post, don't interact with it. This has been happening for the past few weeks on the Isle of Man with various people being copied. Their images are being copied and you're asked to call a number. Anyway, nothing to do with us, and certainly don't call any UK mobile phone number. Right, to the lines now. David's with us first. Hi, David.
Hi, Randy. The only thing I ever got out of Manx Radio, I got a mug sometime, but I think it's old now. I could do with a new one or a tea towel.
A new mug? Okay, I'm sure we can manage that for Christmas.
Oh, I'll tell you what we do. I'm chairman of the Pensions Club. If you give us a tea towel, I'll put it up in the club.
Okay, and throw darts at it. Yes, I know.
Okay. Well, what I talk about is policies of government and so forth. So the interaction I've had with Manx Radio and John for the last 2 months, I'm getting really frustrated about some of them. So yesterday I thought, let's ring Manx Care, go directly to the head of the table. Do you know what I mean? So I tried. I got loads of people. Nothing to do with me, Mr. Quirk, you need to ring this number, back onto it. So finally got to a point, and I'm asking for the policies from the hospital, which must exist. Would you say so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and again, for any new listeners listening, this is the case of a gentleman called John, who is without a home, although he's now got a room, but
right.
He was going to be charged to stay in hospital. Was that right?
£63, and I said to it was up at Ramsey, and that was about a month. 3 weeks ago, and I think it was actually when I was in the same room when this person said to me and John, "If you're staying here, it's £63 a night." I said, "Well, where's that policy?" The policy's under Manx Care, Mr. Quirk. You'll have to ring Manx Care. So yesterday I did. I rang Manx Care. It probably cost me a fortune. And I've got an email, but I won't send it to you at the minute because I've got to retract some stuff on that. It says to me, if I want the information about anything to do with the hospital, any policies, or what we call, I was after the bed blocking one. It's not the bed blocking one, but it refers to that, where a person sitting in the hospital doesn't need real surgery treatment and stuff like that, but you're getting back on your feet. So sometimes they terms years ago they were called bed blockers, and I think they were referring to John as a bed blocker. So I looking for the policy on that, and I've got a reply which just said to me, if you require this information, I've got to do a freedom of information request for a policy. So I rang them today and said to them, look, you have the policies on the shelf. Why do I need and engage with you to spend time, money, when you should be doing something else, to get a policy that should be on the shelf where you just pick it up?
And what did they say?
I've got to fill in a form for a freedom of information request for the policy. And that's what's really annoying me,
Well,
Andy.
that's bizarre. Surely that's in the public domain.
Yes, and the thing is, regarding freedom of information requests, when the previous administrator was in there, said, all you've got to do is ring up somebody in a government department and say to them, have you got this policy on thing? And if they can do it, they can send it to you. It doesn't breach anything. I'm not asking for personal information, how much money we've spent. I'm just asking for the policy that the hospital uses and Ramsey Cottage Hospital use regarding people who stay in there. And where's the requirement to charge a person £63 a day to stay?
And again, that as you say, that will have come from somewhere. Somewhere that's written down, and it'd be nice to know whether there's discretion over that, whether it can be applied or it can be rescinded, or what's what. Or otherwise, it just sounds a bit like a threat, David.
It does. And what do I do then? Do I now email a new Minister for Health and do the same thing and say to her, you're the minister, you should know every policy within the hospital, should be in your gift or in your thing. But why do I need a data subject access request to a minister to get me a policy?
Well,
So,
I mean, it is strange that somebody can't quote you that or point to it somewhere.
yeah, or just send it to me. There's loads of policies that you go into all sorts, sometimes government departments. As I said, people are very helpful, but sometimes people just, when you get to a manager, the door shuts, but it shuts in a nice way where it says, if you want something like this, you've got to fill this form in. It's not hard to fill in, but can you imagine how much work it's costing now for the health service when they should be doing something else?
Yeah, because they have to handle it their end as well, can't they?
Well, it's the same with Manx Radio. If I ask you for a policy on, which I have, on the elections, how you manage them and so forth like that, it was sent to me. So there wasn't an issue there. It wasn't, David, you'll have to fill a form in, you'll have to do data subject access requests, this is a secret, we only keep it in the black box and open it up on certain days. It's getting bizarre with certain things from accessing information, which should be in the public domain.
And what's the latest on John?
Fine. Quickly, can I say one thing too? It's amazing. You know the guy across in Cambridge?
Yes.
Right? He worked for the Zero Race organisation when they did the races in the Isle of Man.
Yeah.
And his son works for the, like Mugens or whatever it is, making electric motors and thing. And he's going to come to the TT. He comes to the TT all the time, he says. I'm going to try and host him somewhere. I won't tell you where at the minute, but anyway. And he said to me the other day, and I forgot to tell you, he said, ask Andy Wint, when are the scoreboards going to be done?
That's interesting. Interesting.
And he's listening. So if he's listening, somebody else is listening, aren't they?
Okay. All right. Have a good weekend. Good to talk to you. Cheers now. This is a gentleman in Mannin Line gets listeners all over the world. Lots of people listen on podcasts. Lots of people listen live. And this is a gentleman from Cambridgeshire who was listening. Maybe he's listening now. Who said he'd like to help with the way that John was in his situation. And as you heard, he's coming over and asked about the scoreboard. Well, Apparently, there's a company on the Isle of Man that makes scoreboards. I don't know whether they make them here or elsewhere, but they make scoreboards. And apparently, they're quite happy to provide a scoreboard for the opposite the grandstand. I don't know what the deal is, but they can do it. And obviously now we got no money, so we can't have a scoreboard. And it looks a bit, well... But we'll find out more. People moan, says 653, about the 100,000 target for population. But also, people moan about the lack of nightlife and the things to do on the Isle of Man. People moan about young people leaving the Isle of Man. If we get 100,000 catchment area for population, that's the bare minimum that big stores and restaurants are going to be looking for before they consider selling up. setting up, sorry. So we are lucky, the fact that the Isle of Man is an affluent place, and we have a big Marks and Spencer. Obviously, Tesco think it's well worth their capital expenditure and their investment to rent the ShopRite sites and to set up. Obviously, the Co-op has lots of stores. But in terms of restaurants and nightlife, you do need people. You need a big mass of people so that a certain proportion will go. One restaurateur told me years and years ago, he estimated every Friday night 300 people went to restaurants. 300 across the entire Isle of Man went to restaurants. I'd be interested to know, if you're in the hospitality trade, what your estimate is. On a Friday night, let's say a Friday night, how many people are served in restaurants? And consequently, is it worth setting up? We've heard the hospitality trade is really stressed at the moment. Hopefully now they're coming into a fertile period, and they'll enjoy some uplift over Christmas. But if you want facilities, and particularly we talk about facilities for young people, you've got to have young people. You have to have young people, so you can't have it both ways. Fewer people, less facilities. You probably won't read this out, says Frank Francis 762. What is your real name? Regarding Eddie's comments yesterday on corruption and the interests of fairness, it may help if all members, now you're talking about Tynwald members or everybody else, outside interests were made public. Those who have directorships or in receipt of consultants' fees from companies supplying for government contracts. This should include all family members, including civil partners. And once published, if nothing is untoward, then fine. But should there be conflicts of interest, it should be declared, says Sir Francis. Well, if you go to the Tynwald website, I'm presuming you're talking about Tynwald and nobody else, but if you go to the Tynwald website, there's a page called Members' Interests. The Register of Members' Interests rules can be found in the standing orders of Tynwald Court, and the purpose of the rules is to place a duty on members of Tynwald to identify interests which should be registered in order to inform Tynwald Court, the branches and the public of any circumstances arising from them which could reasonably be regarded as bearing on the way in which any member may carry out his or her duties. So you click on any one of them. I'm not going to pick on any because that could be pejorative, but of all the 24 MHKs and all the members of LegCo, including the Bishop and the Attorney General and the President of Tynwald, click on there, you'll see all their interests. You'll see anything that they've received in terms pecuniary, so if anything has been given or they've had anything provided, benefits in kind and gifts and what have you, it's all on there. So I don't quite get what you're getting at. I mean, Eddie was talking about corruption. It was a kind of general, wide-ranging go at corruption in general. But I mean, bluntly, there's corruption everywhere, isn't there? Everywhere around the world there's corruption. So I don't think we're necessarily leading the charge on it. It's just one of those things. Of course, nowadays, remember, money's tight. The financial tide has gone out, at that which point people start pointing fingers. But that may be just jealousy. Could be just envy, you never know. As a Castletown resident, I was horrified by what I heard during the meeting called last night by Tony Brown and Richard Ronan. A statement was sent to those who called the meeting, was read to the 100 residents by the chairman of the meeting. The contents of the statement sent by Castletown commissioners was completely shocking, left me feeling I was sitting in Castletown, or was it Russia? The whole approach of Castletown commissioners has left my wife and myself contemplating moving out of Castletown. Why does central government not seem interested in intervening? The DOI didn't even turn up to the event, even though they were invited. I'm a totally shocked Manx resident. Were you at that meeting last night? A lot of people in Moreton Hall. It's a big hall, over 100 people there. My son, who is 20, is moving to the UK in January. He's got a transfer from his job, and he said there is nothing to do on the Isle of Man. Said that. And David H. says on 229, does membership include Freemasons? David H., I don't know. And if you do know something, rather than, just generally saying things, then you simply have to say it. You can't just say anybody in the Freemasons is in membership of the Freemasons. Are you seriously, David H., on 229, are you suggesting that the Freemasons, being a member of the Freemasons, is in some way reprehensible? Because if you are, you better say it in public rather than just saying it in private. You do. I mean, this is a serious point. Whenever anybody talks about corruption, and I get the fact that it's a jolly good topic of conversation because everybody thinks somebody else must be on the fiddle. Usually it's somebody who's more successful than that person. But you have to be serious about it. And may I suggest, grown up? 3 of us are looking for that drone at Erie Stane, £1,000 reward being offered, says Greg. Is this true? Is this true that this is that there is £1,000 reward for this? And again, the talk of the island plan to get 100,000 people on the Isle of Man. Are we serious about this? Or we could go back, really, and sell each other spuds and herring and go back to the early 1960s with 45,000 people on the Isle of Man and lots of people out of work. 1984. Do you remember that? 2,000 people out of work. £1 million in reserves, literally paying welfare payments month to month. The Isle of Man was steadily going bust in the mid-1980s. It's tempting nowadays when we've had nothing but growth for going on 40 years, but times were very, very tough. So, something has to be done. Something certainly has to be done, and who's going to do it? Well, were you at this thing in Castletown last night, the Castletown Commissioner's decision to close Market Square to vehicles during the winter months? 100 people were there quizzing a panel including 2 of the current board members, 2 former MHKs and a former chairman. Concerns were raised about the lack of communication from Castletown Commissioners about the decision, the process, no public consultation into the winter closure and no thought for the traders. The most prominent complaint was perceived lack of consideration given to residents who have a disability and aren't able to park safely in other areas of the town to get to the shops. One person said the car park by the grammar school isn't safe for elderly people, especially in poor weather. Another said the narrow entrance and exit is dangerous for small children and prams. And if you look at the bashers on the wall, you can see some people don't quite make it. Another said she'd been told by the chair of the Castletown Commissioners, Beth Cannon, that she wasn't in favour of the square closing in winter herself. Mrs. Cannon wasn't there to back up the claim. Residents spoke about the lack of consultation for the decision. They criticised the commissioners for putting the meeting minutes on display in a hidden and inaccessible location in the town. This resident says there's a lot of discontent.
It's not just a square issue, there's a number of issues going on in the town. I'm involved with the bowling club and there's some really bad stuff gone down there with no consultation. And there's no consultation gone around a lot of things. I've got friends who own businesses in Castletown and they have struggled. The lady who said about people from the boat to shop in Castletown, first you've got to have shops open, so there's nowhere to spend money, is there? And I'm very concerned about the commissioners. I don't think they listen to people. I think there'll be a whole new board coming up. There's a lot of discontent in the town. As it was said about the letter, it was a very official letter, wasn't it? And there's no layman has sat down and written that, so someone's written it for them. But that's why, because we need to get the town fixed. It's broken at the moment.
Well, Castletown in the summertime, it's gorgeous. That square's gorgeous in the summer. They're not arguing about the summertime. This is the closure in the winter of the square. If you're around, you live in the south, you visit Castletown, how do you feel about this in the winter? The square being closed and having to find somewhere else, by the grammar school or elsewhere, and stroll into town that way. Any thoughts? Bonzo's with us now. Hi, Bonzo.
Hello, yes, just hearing various people on there who were talking about the fact that we have a wealthy population, and that there's plenty of demand for shops, etc., etc., and why are people whinging about having a population of 100,000 and such. Well, yes, who are these wealthy people? Yes, I know there are some. I see them sort of strolling around in very flash cars and such like. But how many of them are there? You were mentioning that how many years have we had consecutive economic growth?
Since we hit the bottom in 1984.
But ever since then, there's been constant economic growth. Yeah?
Well, if you average from 1984, there've been blips and fits and starts, but the Isle of Man has done extremely well. Now, remember, pre-19 when the tourist industry fell off a cliff after the Millennium Year in 1979, Bonzo, it was dire. It was dire. The place was we were going out of business.
Oh, I know that. I mean, I came back from my grandfather's funeral in '85, and I was hearing much the same thing. However, then, of course, there was the reorientation of the economy when it went to financial services and such. And, well, by 1990, I had people from the nascent Financial Supervision Commission offering me a job. So things kind of turn around, and then we got to the point where I then returned, at the sort of end of 2000, and it was a good place to be, and it was a good place to be because people had disposable income, and most people, well, everybody had disposable income, even on reasonable salaries, because of the way that tax personal allowances and other things were structured at the time. Now, yes, of course, there was the VAT shock, etc. But in order to have, and I seem to recall this mentioning this on a budget program 2 years ago or so, to have, at that time when I was talking about it 2 years ago, to have the same kind of economic benefit, personal economic benefit of moving from UK to the Isle of Man, my personal allowance now would have to be something like 22,000 before tax. That was the equivalent that we had in those days.
Yeah.
And so with that, well, obviously you could see, I mean, mortgage rates were quite reasonable then at the time. Property prices were going up, but still within the reach of affordability to somebody on median salary and such. So people had money, and people then went out. The weekend began at Thursday. There was lots of nightlife and lots of everything and lots of restaurants and stuff, and that's because people had disposable income.
Yeah.
This isn't just a problem for the Isle of Man. You see it across in that people now have less and less and less disposable income. And because of that, well, there isn't going to be the nightlife because there isn't going to be the disposable income for people to actually go out and spend and support that nightlife.
And do you think people in government, in the civil service, the bureaucrats, the politicians, do they know this trend? Do they recognise the trend?
Some do, but I don't think some others do because they're too busy supporting the welfarist agenda, whereby the very wealthy have to be given more money in tax breaks and such like, and that has to essentially be paid for by the 80% of the rest.
Obviously, in financial terms, a rising tide floats all boats, and because the tide's gone out, we now notice disparities. We notice the fact that what I'm saying is that years ago, when there was lots of money sloshing around, nobody minded the millionaires. Nobody minded the fact that they were there because there was money, as you say. People had disposable income. They could fund their lifestyle to the level they wanted to. But now times are different. It is tough, as you say. It's tough everywhere around the Western world, and we just happen to be seeing the symptoms here.
Yes, there is. But also, I was about to correct you on this fallacy of a rising tide floats all boats, which is something that free marketeers love to quote. Well, first of all, that depends where your boat is moored and how far the tide goes up. Secondly, it rather depends on you having a boat, because if you don't, you're going to drown. So that's pretty nonsensical. And this idea that somehow, from trickle-down economics, that, if we let the rich be rich and marvellous, and if we have more of them over here, then somehow their money will percolate into the economy. Wrong. It's the people who are at the lower end. If you give them money, what will they do with it? They won't hoard it. They won't go off and buy a super yacht. They'll spend it in the local economy.
So why doesn't the government raise the threshold at the bottom threshold? Why don't they put that a lot higher so people on lower incomes can have more? Because I'd love to know the ratio of how much tax is paid in the various income bands.
Well, as I say, we have a welfare state policy on this island, whereby the rich must benefit, and those who are not rich must pay for the rich.
But this goes back to the 1960s, wasn't it? This was Ronald Garvey, the governor, who then told Tynwald, you don't have to charge super tax, and that was why we have all those 1960s bungalows that were paid for by the millionaires who came over in the 1960s. So this theory has been around for nigh on 60 plus years.
Yes, but those were the days of super tax, because we were talking about 95-98% tax on unearned income, from the Beatles' Taxman, one for you, 19 for me. That was the driver for that. And nowadays in the UK, there's nothing like that kind of taxation for the wealthy.
This could only be levelled out if it's done on a global basis, Bonzo, and surely you're not suggesting that would ever happen.
There are moves afoot, I think, via global financial organisations in order to actually try and agree global tax limits on the extremely, extremely wealthy. A billionaire sort of tax regime, if you will. But that's not quite the point here. The point is that we don't need to adjust the taxation bands hugely. The very wealthy don't need to be taxed until the pips squeak in order to make sure there's enough money to go around and that people have enough disposable income. But they do have to be taxed a bit more and a bit more fairly. But this seems to be beyond the wit of various people in Tynwald, because the wealthy are sacred cows, according to them.
Have you got any thoughts on giving young people a break on buying a house?
Well, yes. There have to be the sort of A, disposable income in the first place, and B, a relatively generous mortgage subsidy. Which would then involve a government mortgage scheme. I know there is some sort of government mortgage scheme, but it's not very generous and it's not really accessible.
But you wonder, because there are many 50 and 60-year-old people who will tell you, I benefited from a government mortgage, it helped me, it got me on the ladder, and nowadays you have couples and single people shelling out over £1,000 a month to rent something that could easily fund a mortgage if the government were serious about offering it.
Well, quite, but this seems to evade the government, though I think some of the recommendations recently from the Economic Policy Review Committee have suggested these things, along with I think the major plank of it is a major review of personal allowances and a major uprating of personal allowances in order so that people can actually have some disposable income, because now our personal allowance is actually lower, I believe, than the UK. And we have so much in the way of additional expenditures living on an island to finance.
I'm just interested as to whether you think that the people in power, let's call them the people in power, whether it's bureaucrats, financiers, or anybody, do you think they've got all the lenses in a row? Do you think they see things clearly? I mean, surely they wouldn't be so short-sighted as to just look after themselves, would they?
Well, certainly look after some of their constituents so as to make sure they get voted back in. Perhaps, yes. But there is a view that still persists, because, of course, we've had it for 30 years in various sectors, in various parts of government, that a low-tax economy is what is needed, and that the rich must be taxed least of all.
Well,
so I don't quite know where we're going to go from here, unless we have a very, very radical rethink about the basic economic structure of the Isle of Man and where the economy of the Isle of Man is going to go. Because it seems to be at the moment very much a headless chicken policy.
Okay, appreciate it, Bonzo. Thanks for calling today. Have a good weekend.
Okay then. Good
to hear from you. The government recorded a higher than expected surplus for 2023-2024, the financial year. The accounts for the 12-month period show revenue exceeded expenditure by £18.3 million, despite the budget only forecasting a £900,000 surplus. Spending for the financial year ended March this year was higher than expected, with government services costing £1.324 billion. The figure included £57 million in supplementary budgets for 4 departments and is £120 million higher than the previous 12 months. Revenue, though, exceeded expectations. Incoming funds £1.343 billion, £85.4 million more than forecast in the budget. Treasury says the higher than anticipated figure is mainly due to income tax receipts being greater than budgeted for. More income tax, eh? The current market value of government's external reserves increased in the same period by £114 million. The government's external reserves are now £1.926 billion, so a whisker really off £2 billion. The annual report, which has been published ahead of next month's sitting of Tynwald, says Treasury's goal continues to ensure sustainable finances to allow reserves to recover from the financial shocks experienced in recent years. VAT, COVID, etc., and maintain a strong financial base to support economic growth for the Isle of Man. If you have any thoughts. This is all tied in. I mean, really, the amount of money we get in income tax is connected. It may be convoluted, but it's connected to happiness, contentment, people, if they want to, purchasing a property, young couples, young single people purchasing a property, having a life, being economically viable, spending money on goods and services, which goes round and round. Bluntly, we're all in it together.
Hello, Isle of Man. At Co-op, we believe it's wrong to lower prices on things you buy least. So we lower the prices on the things you buy most, as well as giving you other exclusive member benefits. Plus, we now deliver to the whole island, so great deals can be delivered to your doorstep. So join Co-op to become not just a member, but an owner, and have your say on how we're run. Co-op, owned by you, right by you. £1 membership fee applies. See full T's and C's at coop.co.uk/terms.
I'm detecting a cyber attack on our client's systems.
OK, analyse the incident and ensure any malicious activity is blocked.
OK, our response tools have automatically blocked the attack.
Great, I'll put together an incident response plan. Notify the client, and can we confirm protection across all clients?
You don't always see how cybersecurity is working in the background to keep your business safe and running smoothly. But CND will identify, protect, detect and respond to any cyber attack, leaving you to focus on your business and customers.
Hi, how can I help you today?
Computer Network Defense, CND. Visit cndltd.com to see how we can protect your business today.
Walk through the Christmas wonderland at Ramsey Garden Centre for a magical range of trees, decorations, unique gifts and much more, including the widest range of indoor and outdoor lights. Christmas at Ramsey Garden Centre, open 7 days a week.
Love shopping? Finding it difficult to get out and about? You'll love our Shop Mobility Buddies. It's a new incentive set up by Circa to help you get the best out of your Douglas shopping trip. From Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. till 4 p.m, we'll pair you up with a manual or powered wheelchair or mobility scooter, as well as a Shop Mobility Buddy to help with your shopping. For details, click circa.org.im. Sponsored by the Manx Lottery Trust as a delegated partner of the National Lottery Community Fund.
At November Tynwald, members pondered when is a dependency not a dependency? Should UK legislation introduced to the Isle of Man by Comyn be laid before Tynwald, and does the Isle of Man need a permanent representative in London? It's remarkable that there has been little discussion and even less change to our constitutional relationship with the UK for nearly quarter of a century. A fascinating topic for perspective this Sunday at 12 noon on Manx Radio with me, Phil Gaughan. Some have said that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but perhaps it is broke, and politicians have just got so used to the decaying structure, they've not noticed its structural flaws.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
It's 18 minutes now before 1. Before 1 o'clock after Mannin Line, we'll hear from the Bishop of Sodor and Man. Not this one, but Vernon Nichols, who was Bishop of Sodor and Man from 1974 to 1983. And a Christmas appearance he made on Mannin Line in the 1970s, where he addressed the question, is Christmas becoming too commercial? The Bishop of Sodor and Man in the 1970s after Mannin Line today. And Eddie's with us now. Hi, Eddie.
Hi, Andy. You all right, mate?
Good, thanks. It's Friday.
It's Friday. Great day. Get a few pints. Yep. I was just listening to conversations about distribution of wealth sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I like to watch a lot of the historical programmes on the telly about all around Britain and Ireland, you name it. And one thing that always strikes me is, you see, towns have been built by very wealthy people for the public, parks, so and so. You know, it's spread all over that, and I think in the Victorian times and Georgian times even, you know, those people who made masses and masses of money did actually put something back, gave it to the public. You know, I think maybe Pulson Park in Castletown was an illustration of that. I think that was given by a wealthy guy for the public of the town. I actually worked for a certain somebody over Port Erin years and years ago, and he introduced me to a guy who was involved in Pasadena and Las Vegas. And he, because he made a lot of money out of the land that he bought for a cent an acre, once it all became somewhere that everybody wanted and built there, you know, skyscrapers, you name it, he actually built libraries, parks, swimming pools, you name it. He put a lot back for nothing because he'd made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I wonder how many, I do know of a lot of people on the Isle of Man who have got hundreds of millions. And just for them to put a tiny percentage back into the fact that they've saved hundreds of millions, probably over the years in tax, would be a nice gesture by some of these rich people. I mean, I don't know whether they're taxed at the right rate or not. I don't want to.
Well, the thing is, I mean, the tax rates are the tax rates. It's between them and the, you know, two things. Tax evasion is illegal. Tax avoidance is not. Everybody, you know, you set you conduct your tax affairs within the rules, and we're assuming that everybody does because, you know, they're close and the Treasury will monitor everything. So as you say, but I mean, there are lots of rich people who do who splash the money out. I mean, the Scheinberg family, you know, the people who are involved in the gambling and what have you, they put millions out, but don't talk about it. I mean, There was the guy, Bill Scholl, the Scholl Foundation. Remember Scholl Shoes? Bill Scholl gave millions and millions of pounds. There was a guy who gave £500,000 to St Matters, the Manx Blind Welfare, a couple of months ago. So lots of rich people do that, but a lot of them don't make a fuss about it.
Yeah, I didn't really mean it in that sense. What I'm meaning is, like, say, for instance, you've got X amount of millionaires on the Isle of Man, just living on the Isle of Man. They supply work for some of the locals, and it's distributed like that in one sense, okay. But what I'm trying to get at is some of the people of today, especially companies around the world. You look at the excess billions that some of the companies make, but it's spread out in the shareholders and things like that. It's not put back to the community.
Well, you mean, are you talking about something like Henry Bloom Noble, the very rich guy, but he gave the Villa Marina to the Isle of Man. He gave
That's exactly what I'm saying, yeah.
Oh, so we need some people like a modern-day Henry Bloom Noble.
Well, just sort of search the consciences and think, how much money have I made by just living on the Isle of Man and saving in tax? Okay. Let's give a bit back. Let's ask them to be a bit more generous.
All right, appreciate that. Have a good weekend, Eddie. Thanks for calling.
And you.
Good to hear from you. And I've also got to say congratulations to Jack Kamada has come back to FC Isle of Man for the remainder of this season. Jack Kamada played for the Ravens in the first 2 seasons, but he's back. And FC Isle of Man are away at AFC Liverpool tomorrow. Hope the weather's going to be okay.
The Loganair Black Friday sale is now on, and it's our biggest discount yet. Fly from the Isle of Man and save up to 20% off over 1 million seats across the Loganair network. Use promo code BF20 when booking. Book by 3rd December, travel from 9th January. T's and C's apply. Offer subject to availability. Exclusions apply. Visit loganair.co.uk. Loganair. Your journey. Our joy.
Spectrum Windows. If your house needs a new look and your windows let in rain, keep those cold breezes out and make it look like new again. Spectrum Windows, Spectrum Windows. Quality through and through. Great work guaranteed to you. Spectrum Windows, Spectrum Windows. Spectrum Windows.
Grand. Save some turkey for the rest of us. The holidays sure bring people together, don't they? This is Seth from Orchard Recruitment, here to remind you that a refreshing change could be just what you need. Head to orchardrecruitment.com to turn this time of year into a new opportunity. Whether it's an exciting role to kick off the new year or something special to wrap up this one, we're here to help. Now, maybe a little walk before pie? Wishing you a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Get ready for Black Friday at Comus Hotel and Golf Resort. On the 29th of November from 4 to 9 p.m, everyone's invited to take advantage of our Black Friday offers, only available in person at Comus, including an extra £50 when you buy a £200 voucher to spend on overnight stays, dining, golfing or spa treatments. T's and C's apply. Plus lots of other exclusive offers only available in person on the night. For details, visit comushotel.com. For perfect Christmas gifting opportunities, come to Comus Hotel and Golf Resort on the 29th November.
This Christmas, we're spreading the festive cheer and championing local businesses by encouraging you to shop local. Here at Manx Radio, we're teaming up with Love Manx, who are running a Shop Local Christmas campaign to give you the chance to win a £100 voucher to spend at any independent local business. To win, text us now on 166 177 and tell us your favourite local business or producer and what festive goodies are catching your eye this year. And we'll announce the winner on Feel Good Friday this afternoon from 3 o'clock. Think local first this Christmas with Love Manx and your nation station, Manx Radio.
The Man in Line with Andy Wint.
Look at that time, it's 10 to 1 now. Trevor Hemmings always made quiet, secret, big donations. Says 553. 553 is obviously on the know. And it is a fact. If you are involved in a charity, you'll know lots of people do give substantial amounts of money. And one of the stipulations is they don't want anybody to know that they do that. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? With the appointment of Michelle Hayward as the new DOI Minister and Stu Peters leaving the DOI due to a difference of opinion, it's clear, says 840, that Mr. Cannon is not backing the development of our gas field. This is the Kroger gas field. How embarrassing will it be for the Isle of Man government if Kroger find the flow rates of the other UK gas fields are commercial and we won't get a penny? The geography between the two fields very similar. We could be a mini Norway. We could have the best NHS in the world if the Kroger gas thing works and if it's allowed. Well, we'll wait and see what happens. Kroger at the moment have their own issues with that employment tribunal at the moment, but it'd be nice to see. But at the moment, it seems to be going nowhere. I don't mind going back to the 50s and 60s if the beer prices are the same, says Des. I can tell it's Friday. Thank you, Des. And thank you also for the people telling me how to do my freedom of informations. A message also that just says, speaking of increasing our population, 109 this is, there was a report out yesterday saying that anybody considering moving to the Isle of Man and earning less than $60,000 a year will be better off staying in the UK. So out of interest, I did a tax comparison on my median Isle of Man salary with the UK, and because of the situation with the Manx NI being 11%, my salary is actually worth £200 a month less take home than it would be in the UK. So much for attracting new residents, says 109. You've echoed my thoughts, 109. They say we want extra people here to get the economy moving, put the burners under it. But how do we do it? And certainly the cost of accommodation for young people is sometimes virtually prohibitive. And that can be disillusioning, really. It can lead to frustration. MHKs don't understand due to the size of their salaries. They're completely out of touch with how most people are struggling, says 149.
When the Mannin line's not on air, call Manx Radio to leave your opinion for broadcast on 682 631.
It's not just Castletown commissioners that have got a disregard for blue badge holders. The insane idea to close off part of Parliament Street in Ramsey by a certain commissioner was met with a comment on social media that not everybody is ill. It's only the loss of 2 blue badge spaces. Ramsey seems like Castletown, hell-bent on creating empty shops. The only growth industry will be the estate agent. Any thoughts on the Castletown situation? Again, out of hours, call the answer phone on 682-631. And the message out of hours is manninline@manxradio.com. Difficult to have a disposable income when the cost of accommodation easily soaks up 50% or more of wages. I don't know why people are complaining about the square being closed in the winter. It's just the same in Douglas. Peel, the removal of car parking spaces. It's the future, says Des. Well, they're talking about building a brand new multi-storey car park in Douglas. A big one. Bonzo's hit the nail on the head, says Victoria. People had disposable income and therefore freedom, which enraged those who see themselves as the elite. Took till 6 minutes to 1 to get a conspiracy theory. Well, that's it. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today. Have a fantastic weekend. Going to be back with another open line on Monday.
WINT. 60 years serving you as the nation's station. This is Manx Radio.
We are getting ever closer to that time of year. But one question frequently rises. Is Christmas too commercialised? Bishop Vernon Nichols appeared on a phone-in at Manx Radio at the festive time and met one very young listener and then got to grips with what is a serious issue.
But I believe Father Christmas is going to come to this little girl in Laxey. Can I ask her, are you going to hang up your stocking?
Yeah.
At the foot of your bed?
Yeah.
Lovely. And you'll go to sleep?
Yeah.
Wonderful. I hope you have a lovely lot of presents.
Yeah.
Good. And you will be no fire in the fireplace for Father Christmas to come down the chimney, will there? You put the fire out before you go to bed?
The Lord Bishop there talking to our youngest phone-in caller yet, from Laxey. Another guest on the Christmas programme was journalist Valerie Roach. But it was the Lord Bishop again who first answered the question, is Christmas becoming too commercialised?
Christmas here is not so commercialised as it was, for example, when we were living in Birmingham. Father Christmas came to the big stores at the end of October. But I'm sorry, I still feel that if we're speaking broadly, television today does really commercialise Christmas, and I think with disastrous effects. I think people are so gullible, so easily led. Oh, we must buy this and we must buy that. It's advertised on television, and they do this. And any of us who worked in a big parish will know that on the 2nd or 3rd of January, the doorbell is ringing. There are problems in the home because the money has run out, and all the bills are beginning to come in. So please, let's not say to our listening audience that Christmas is not commercialised in the Western world. It jolly well is. It may not be commercialised too much here.
Yes, I think this is very sad, actually. More and more, I think children growing up now are being led to believe that Christmas is not a good Christmas unless they've got an enormous pile of extremely expensive toys. And this is nonsense. I mean, you don't show any real love or Christmas spirit to people simply by, writing enormous cheques for things. I think a really happy family Christmas does not depend on that sort of thing, and it's very wrong that commercial interests should put it over as if it did.
Part of Island life for 60 years. This is your Manx Radio.